You know, it's no secret that Donald Trump had a strained relationship with the intelligence community, but a new chapter published by the CIA underscores just how troubled that relationship was even before Trump officially took office. Former intelligence officer John Helgerson writes that for the intelligence community, the Trump transition was far and away the most difficult in its historical experience with briefing new presidents. The only and imperfect analog was the Nixon transition. DNI James Clapper recalled Trump was prone to fly off on tangents. There might be 8 or 9 minutes of real intelligence in an hour's discussion. The irreconcilable difference in Clapper's view is that the IC worked with evidence. Trump was fact-free. Evidence doesn't cut it with him. And we are now joined by David Priess. He is the publisher and chief operating officer of Lawfare. He's also a former intelligence CIA officer himself, where he briefed George W. Bush for part of that administration. He's also the author of The President's Book of Secrets, a history of the president's daily brief. Okay, this is called Chapter 9, Donald J. Trump, a Unique Challenge, David. I mean, that's a very understated title, I will say here, but explain this, why he was more difficult or the most difficult since Nixon.
Unique actually is a very good summary. John did a good job with that title because it conveys so much. It wasn't that Donald Trump was unbriefable. He did actually have intelligence briefings during the transition, and he did keep them through much of his presidency. But those briefings were decidedly different than with any other president because Donald Trump did not want to sit there and listen to the objective facts as judged by the intelligence community. He wanted to talk. He wanted to interrupt. He wanted to ask questions and not really focus on what the evidence was as much as what he thought the evidence was. And that led to a very difficult relationship for an intelligence enterprise that has been built up over decades solely to get objective information before the president.
And look, you've written about this. Every president is different in their engagement style, but there's this, are they absorbing the information? And I think what we can see from this chapter is that Trump was not doing that nearly as much as other previous presidents. But, you know, the person who was Vice President Mike Pence. He was kind of receiving these briefings more like a president than even President Trump was, it seems.
Right on. There's a couple of people other than President Trump in the administration who get some attention in this new material. And one of them is Vice President Pence, who we didn't have much of a window on from the reporting during the administration regarding how he took intelligence. There was an assumption that he was getting the president's daily brief and taking the information seriously because, frankly, the vice president just doesn't have as much to do as the president. And he always could have to step into Trump's shoes, perhaps more likely with this president than many others, given the 2 impeachments. So Pence should have been doing this. And this material shows that, in fact, he was taking briefings quite regularly and engaging heavily with his intelligence community interlocutors. But there also is a focus on Michael Flynn in this document, which is quite interesting regarding what he's been up to lately, because Michael Flynn, unlike President-elect Trump, was fully briefed on all CIA covert actions that were at the behest of the current president, that was Barack Obama at the time, that Donald Trump would be inheriting as his covert actions on Inauguration Day. Michael Flynn got that briefing from the CIA along with Vice President Pence back on December 7th of 2020. Trump didn't, and it wasn't until several weeks into his administration that Trump got briefed on all of the covert actions that he was now responsible for. It was quite a revelation.
Yeah, what you mean when Flynn was briefed in 2016? Is that what you meant, just to be clear?
Yes, 2016,
okay.
Not
yeah,
2020.
No, I just wanted to
2020, Michael Flynn was in a very different circumstance.
That would have been a headline. Okay, so he actually Trump didn't get a briefing in the last month of the presidency.
That's how it appears. It's a little bit dodgy the way that it's written. It's almost as if John Helgerson didn't want to say it that bluntly, but he pointed out that before Donald Trump left for Mar-a-Lago for the holidays, which was somewhere around December 23rd, 2020, that he had his last briefing with his regular PDB briefer and said, "I'll see you later," but she wasn't planning on going down to Mar-a-Lago and briefing him during the holidays. Later meant when he came back in early January. But the book says that he came back and they were scheduled to have a briefing on January 6th, but they didn't have one, and they didn't have one until the end of Trump's term, which does add up to almost a month of no intelligence getting to the president through the regular briefing process, because this material also shows that even though the PDB would be delivered, he may have literally touched the book, as his first briefer said, but he didn't actually read anything. So it's a shocking revelation there, too, that the commander in chief of the United States didn't get any material from the PDB for virtually a month at the end of his presidency in a very chaotic time.
Yeah, it's staggering. And you mentioned, as we see Trump style here, interrupting briefers. What's the matter with that? What's wrong with interrupting a briefer or challenging a briefer?
Yeah, this may be surprising, but there's nothing at all wrong with that. In fact, when I was a briefer, most often for Bob Mueller and John Ashcroft, but a few times into the White House, I actually wanted the customers, as we called them, to interrupt, because then I would know what wasn't working for them in the way I was presenting it, and I would know what was of interest to them that I needed to address in the limited time we had together. So there's nothing wrong with interruptions. There is something wrong if the interruptions mean that the fundamental bottom line assessments cannot be communicated. If the messages that the entire intelligence community has been geared up to try to get to the commander in chief can't get through because there's too much chaos in the room. And it looks from this new material like that's closer to where we were at often in the Trump administration, that Clapper said, I think you teed up 8 or 9 minutes in a 1-hour briefing might actually be focused on intelligence. That's actually not horrible. You can communicate a lot of intelligence bottom lines in 8 or 9 minutes. That was a hopeful note in the new material. But other days, it sure sounds like no main messages were getting through. And that's the problem with someone who interrupts so often to hear himself talk that the intelligence briefer can't do her job getting the information out.
I love how you say that's hopeful. You are an optimist, David Priess. You are. And I really thank you for, you pull the curtain back on this, and it's great to talk to you about this. Thank you.
Thank you.